Hey everybody, welcome to Crack Pack Tuesday number 61, part 2. We've got our second pack of Eternal Masters. Hopefully this one has something a little bit better than Sulfuric Vortex. Although that Victimize was $6, so I made back slightly less than half of my pack value. But let's hope this one's better. We'll see what's in it and see what we would take pack one, pick one if this was a draft. Up first, we've got ourselves a Mogg Fanatic. Mogg Fanatic, a single red mana for a creature goblin 1/1. Sacrifice Mogg Fanatic. Mogg Fanatic deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Totally fine card. It's decent in cube. It does some good stuff. It was significantly better back when damage went on the stack, because of course during combat damage, this would put 1 damage on the stack when it attacked or when it blocked, and then in response to that damage trigger, you could sacrifice it to do another damage. They did away with that way back when, so now you get one or the other, unfortunately, so it's less good. Definitely not a first pick card, but if you're in red, it's usually fine to include the first one, maybe even the second one. Up next, we've got ourselves a Shelter. Shelter is 1 and a white. For an instant, target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. Draw a card. Seems fine. It's pretty similar to something like God's Willing, which has been good in the past. I would include these in my white decks. I'd be pretty happy with them. I wouldn't take them super highly, and I definitely would never first pick them, but be pretty okay with it. Next up, we have Night's Whisper. Night's Whisper, 1 and a black for a sorcery. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. This is the original Sign in Blood. Sign in Blood is black for this effect, although you can target with it, so you can potentially kill an opponent with it. But generally you target yourself, and so this is fine and a little bit easier to cast even. So Night's Whisper, totally fine, not first pickable, but I'd include this in a lot of black decks. I would have to be... No, I was going to say I'd have to be super aggressive to not want to play this, but I think even then I'd want to play it to refill my hand. Next up, we have Undying Rage. Undying Rage is 2 and a red for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and can't block. And when this is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to its owner's hand. So it's got the Rancor clause on it. So if the creature dies, you get this back. So you don't 2-for-1 yourself. Decent enough. You want to be in a super aggressive deck for this to really go off. But in said aggressive deck, I'd be okay with this. It's better than something like Goblin Warpaint or Senseless Rage because you do get it back. It functions kind of like an equipment. So Undying Rage, not first pickable, but playable. Next up, we've got Abundant Growth, single green mana for an enchantment aura, enchant land. When Abundant Growth enters the battlefield, you draw a card, so it does replace itself, which is nice. And Enchanted Land has tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If you want to splash, or if you want to go, crazy 4 or 5 color shenanigans, probably base green, then this would be an okay pickup, but you would never pick this up to do that. You would pick this up late in the pack once you know that you're already going that way. Not a first pick. Next up, we have Gaseous Form. Gaseous Form is 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by enchanted creature. So this is kind of like a bad pacifism. We've seen these before a number of times. I can't remember what set Gaseous Form was in, but I do feel like it was... Maybe it was Cube, actually. Maybe I'm thinking of Cube. But a similar thing was in Innistrad or Absent Restored. It was Defang, I think, or something like that. It was a vampire who was defanged, and it did the same thing. And it's not that good, because they do get virtually an indestructible creature, an indestructible blocker. So it's not the best of plans, but it does still deal with a bomb, assuming the bomb's bomminess is its stats and its effect on the battlefield as a creature, not its abilities, because they can still be activated. Not a first pick, though, nowhere near, because it is not anywhere near pacifism or anything like that. Next up, we get Carbonize. Carbonize is 2 and a red for an instant. Carbonize deals 3 damage to a creature or player. That creature can't be regenerated this turn. If the creature would die this turn, exile it instead. This is removal. This is solid burn. We don't usually get to do 3 damage for 3 at instant speed these days for, not having something like double red or stuff like that. We do have Fiery Temper, but, 1 red is harder than 2 in a red. Carbonize seems super good. I don't think Lightning Bolt's in this set, so we're not going to get that incredibly crazy for burn, but this is still super solid and 100% a first pick. Absolutely solid. Every red deck wants as many of those as possible. Up next, we have White Mane Lion. White Mane Lion is 1 and a white for a creature cat. It's a 2/2. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, you must return a creature you control to its owner's hand. So if you have none, it returns itself, which would be bad. It's a fine 2-drop. It's definitely, a role player in White Weenie, or even just, a bridge from, 1 drops to 3 drops in a white deck, I would probably play the first one of these basically always, as long as I knew I was going to be, relatively creature heavy. It's a nice surprise blocker. It can, really, really, really abuse end of the battlefield effects and things like that. So White Mane Lion I'd be pretty happy with, but I don't think I'd ever first pick it. Up next, we have a Nausea. Nausea is 1 and a black for a sorcery. All creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn. 100% sideboard. If you're up against a bunch of goblins or a bunch of 1/1 tokens, you sideboard this in, but you'd never main deck this. Just not something you want to do. Maybe if it was instant speed, but at sorcery speed, absolutely not. Up next, we've got Counterspell. Good old Counterspell. Blue, counter target spell. No flavor text, no nothing. Yeah, this is fine, but it's not great in limited. Counterspell is a constructed card. Limited, it's much less good. It's the best counterspell you will ever see in your life. Generally our counterspells these days are 1 blue, or even worse, they counter a specific type of spell. But yeah, counterspell's fine. I would never first pick it. But if you're in blue, if you're going the late game plan, you'll be pretty happy to have one of these, I think. Uncommon number 2, we have a Battle Squadron. Battle Squadron, 3 red for a creature goblin, star. It's got flying, and Battle Squadron's power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. So you want to go wide and then fly that squadron in on this thing. Yeah, this seems pretty good. I don't think I've ever seen this card before. I have no idea what set it's from. Looks not mirrored any, maybe like onslaughty. I'm not sure. But yeah, seems good if you're going to be going pretty wide. So obviously if you're in a Goblins token deck, this thing just gets huge. So I think I'd actually be pretty okay taking this first pick and then kind of going that route. It looks like a good card to me. Our last uncommon is a Calciderm. 2 white for a creature beast. It's a 5/5. It's got Shroud, so it's got to have a downside, right? 5/5 for 4. It seems pretty good. Well, it's got Vanishing 4, which means that this creature comes in with 4 time counters, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you take a time counter off. When you take that last time counter off, you take the creature right off the battlefield. It dies. So yeah, this comes down as a 5/5 that nobody can touch. You can't do anything to it. Your opponent can't do anything to it. It is basically invincible outside of sacrifice effects and combat damage. But yeah, it's a 5/5 that comes down. You can't do anything with it first turn because it doesn't have haste. Next turn you get to attack with it. It's got 3 counters left. Next turn you can attack with it. It's got 2 counters left. Next turn you can attack with it. It's got 1 counter left, and then it's gone. So you get 3 full turns with this thing, which is pretty good. If it gets hit unblocked, that's 15 damage. So this seems fine. I don't know. I imagine there's no way of abusing it because of the Shroud. But it seems like a fine creature. I'm not quite sure if it's first pickable. I feel like it probably is. It's probably a curve topper in, something like a white weenie deck. So yeah, I bet it's probably first pickable, so we can keep it in the discussion. Our rare is, I haven't even looked at it yet. Pyro. That's not a rare. That's uncommon. Uncommon number 3. Sorry, Calciderm was uncommon number 2. Uncommon number 3 is Pyroblast. A single red mana for an instant. Choose 1. Counter target spell if it's blue, or destroy target permanent if it's blue. This is a role player in Pauper. It was common. It's been upgraded to uncommon. But in limited, it's purely a sideboard card. You do not take this card, highly. You take it pretty lowly. But yeah, it's cool new art. It's really nice art. I do like the original. The original is very classic Magic art, but I do like this new one as well. But yeah, it's not first pickable. It's a pure sideboard card in limited. So Pyroblast. So now our rare that I've also not looked at is an Isochron Scepter. That's fun, but it's not a Jace. Isochron Scepter, 2 generic mana for an artifact. It has imprint, so when it enters the battlefield, you may exile an instant card with converted mana cost 2 or less from your hand. You can then pay 2 and tap it to copy the exiled card. If you do, you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So you can do something awesome, such as play Isochron Scepter, discarding a counter spell. You then have an artifact that says pay 2, counter a spell. That is amazing. I've done that with Mana Leak, actually, in my cube. Isochron Scepter can do some really, really, really broken things if you really go in with it. You could do Isochron Scepter Counterspell, Isochron Scepter Fog, Isochron Scepter, whatever burn there is in this set at 2. I don't know if there is any. But yeah, Isochron Scepter can do some really fun things. So I definitely think it's a consideration for first pick. Plus, it keeps you completely open. Finally, our foil is a lovely Rebecca Guay, Gaia's Blessing. 1 and a green for a sorcery. It's an uncommon. Target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from his or her graveyard into his or her library. Draw a card. When Gaia's Blessing is put into your graveyard from your library, shuffle your graveyard into your library. Not super exciting and limited. You know, it shuffles things into your library. It doesn't even get them back in your hand, doesn't even put them on top, so it's as slow as you could possibly ever be. But it does replace itself. It's, you know, just not a card that you're going to play too much unless you're abusing it in some way, or if you're... I don't see a place where I would play it. The art is gorgeous, though, so I'm very happy to have that in foil, but it's not in the consideration for first pick. So I think Calciderm probably is not in the consideration for first pick. I think it's between Scepter, Carbonize, and Battle Squadron. And I think ultimately I do just take the Scepter. Keeps me completely open. I can pick up the Counterspell next pack, or the Fog, or some sort of crazy shenanigans to really take advantage of it. But yeah, Isochron Scepter is going to be my first pick with my somewhat lack of knowledge of the format. Let me know what you would have taken in the comments down below. Would you have taken the Battle Squadron, the Carbonize, the Calciderm, the foil Gaia's Blessing? Let me know. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. You can also find me at facebook.com/TheManaLeak and twitch.tv/TheManaLeak. You've already found me here on YouTube. Click that like button and that subscribe button if you enjoy my content and if you want to see more. But as always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you all next time.